Elvis Presley sat hunched on a concrete stairwell landing between the 28th and 29th floors of the Las Vegas Hilton at 3:17 a.m. on July 4th, 1975, still wearing his white jumpsuit from that night's show, mascara running down his face in dark streaks, trying to muffle the sounds of his sobbing, because even in his most broken moment, he was terrified someone would hear him, photograph him, sell the story to the tabloids. But what he didn't know was that Miguel Rodriguez, a 53-year-old night janitor who'd emigrated from El Salvador 20 years earlier and who earned minimum wage cleaning the same floors where Elvis performed for hundreds of thousands of dollars per night, was about to round the corner with his cleaning cart and discover the king of rock and roll having a complete emotional breakdown in a place where no one was supposed to see. What happened in the next 47 minutes would never be reported by any newspaper, never appear in any biography, never be acknowledged by anyone in Elvis's inner circle, but it would give Elvis something he desperately needed: permission to be human from someone who had absolutely nothing to gain from lying to him. But the truly shocking thing is, Miguel's advice might be more valuable to Elvis than any professional advice she's received. The evening had started like every other Vegas show that month. Elvis had taken his usual cocktail of prescription medications, uppers to give him energy for the performance, downers to manage the anxiety, painkillers for the chronic back pain that never went away. He'd walked on stage at 10 p.m. to the screaming of thousands of fans, had performed his set list with the muscle memory of someone who'd done this 10,000 times before, had hit the marks, made the moves, told the jokes, sung the songs. But something was different tonight. Maybe it was the pills wearing off at the wrong time. Maybe it was the realization that he'd just turned 40 and felt 60. Maybe it was the phone call earlier that day from Lisa Marie, his 9-year-old daughter, asking why Daddy never had time to visit her anymore. Whatever the trigger, halfway through performing his closer, Elvis had felt something crack inside him, not physically, but spiritually, like a dam finally giving way under too much pressure. He'd made it through the show on autopilot, smiled, waved, left the stage to thunderous applause. The audience never suspected anything was wrong. They'd seen Elvis Presley, the performer. They had no idea Elvis Aaron Presley, the human being, was drowning. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. Elvis's post-performance move was going to be the complete opposite of what everyone expected. Instead of returning to his penthouse suite on the 30th floor like he did every night, instead of gathering with the Memphis Mafia for the usual post-show routine of eating and pills and mindless television until dawn, Elvis had done something impulsive. He'd told his security detail he needed a moment alone, had slipped away while they were distracted, and had entered the emergency stairwell. He'd meant to just catch his breath, clear his head, maybe sit for 5 minutes in a place where no one was watching, where he didn't have to perform, where he could just exist. But the moment the stairwell door closed behind him and he was truly alone, maybe for the first time in years, something broke. All the pressure, all the pain, all the exhaustion he'd been pushing down for decades came flooding up at once. And Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, collapsed onto the concrete stairs and started crying like he hadn't cried since his mother died. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. While Elvis was crying, she kept repeating something. Through his sobs, Elvis kept repeating the same phrase over and over. "I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know who I am." He wasn't Elvis Presley in that moment. He was just a scared, exhausted 40-year-old man who'd lost himself somewhere along the road to superstardom and didn't know how to find his way back. That's when Miguel Rodriguez pushed open the stairwell door on the 28th floor, pulling his janitor's cart behind him. Miguel's job was simple: clean the stairwells on floors 25 through 30 between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. It was monotonous work, but Miguel didn't mind. After 20 years of cleaning hotels, he'd developed a zen-like appreciation for the quiet solitude of night shift work. No crowds, no demands, just him and his mop and the satisfying completion of turning dirty floors clean. And that's when everything changed. What Miguel saw on the stairs was about to give her the biggest shock of her life. He saw the figure huddled on the stairs before he fully processed what he was seeing. A man in a white jumpsuit, face in his hands, shoulders shaking. Miguel's first instinct was to back away quietly. Clearly, this person wanted privacy. But something stopped him. The jumpsuit. He recognized that jumpsuit. Everyone who worked at the Hilton recognized those jumpsuits. That was one of Elvis Presley's stage costumes. Miguel froze. Elvis Presley was crying in the stairwell. Elvis Presley, the man whose face was on billboards all over Vegas, the man people paid hundreds of dollars to see perform, the man who seemed untouchable, superhuman, was having a breakdown in a concrete stairwell at 3 in the morning. Miguel's English wasn't perfect, but he understood enough to know this was a crisis, and more importantly, he understood human suffering. He'd seen enough of it in El Salvador, seen enough of it in his 20 years cleaning hotels where rich people did things they thought the cleaning staff couldn't see or wouldn't understand. What you've just seen is nothing. Miguel's next move would be the complete opposite of what Elvis expected. Miguel didn't ask for an autograph, didn't fumble for a camera, didn't run to get security or management. Instead, he quietly set down his mop, walked over, and sat down on the stairs about 3 feet away from Elvis, close enough to show solidarity, far enough to not invade his space. "You okay, mister?" Miguel asked in his accented English. Elvis looked up, and his expression went through several stages: shock at being discovered, fear that this would end up in the tabloids, embarrassment at being seen in this state. His hands moved to wipe his face, to compose himself, to put the mask back on. But Miguel held up a hand. "It's okay. I no tell nobody. I just want make sure you alive, you know?" Something about Miguel's tone, matter-of-fact, non-judgmental, treating this like it was a normal Tuesday, made Elvis's defenses crumble. "I'm alive," Elvis said, his voice hoarse from crying. "Just barely." Miguel nodded like this made perfect sense. Sometimes barely is enough. Barely is what keeps us going until tomorrow, you know? Elvis stared at this janitor, this complete stranger who had absolutely no reason to be kind to him, and felt something shift. "You know who I am?" "Si, you Elvis. You sing good. My wife, she love you very much. Have all your records." Miguel smiled slightly. "But right now, you just guy crying in stairwell. And I been guy crying in stairwell before, so we same, I think." Believe it or not, Elvis's next question would be completely defenseless.
"Does it get better?" Elvis asked, and there was such raw vulnerability in the question that Miguel felt his heart ache. The feeling like you're drowning, like you've lost yourself, does that ever get better? Miguel was quiet for a moment, considering. "You want truth, or you want lie that makes you feel better for 5 minutes?" "Truth, please. Everyone else just tells me what they think I want to hear." "Okay. Truth is, it get better if you make it get better. But you have to be honest first, honest with yourself about what wrong." "Everything's wrong," Elvis said. "I don't know how to fix everything." "No, no, no," Miguel said, shaking his head. "You thinking too big. You no fix everything. You just fix today. Then tomorrow you fix tomorrow. But first, you tell me, what make you sit in stairwell crying at 3 in morning?" But there was something she didn't know yet. Elvis would first try to lie to Miguel. Elvis started to give his usual answers, the ones he gave his doctors, his managers, his friends. "I'm just tired. The touring schedule is exhausting. I need to lose some weight. It's been a hard year." Miguel listened, then said simply, "Okay, but what really wrong?" Elvis looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean those are excuses. Those are things you tell people so they stop asking questions. I asking different question. What really wrong? In here?" Miguel tapped his chest over his heart. And maybe it was the medication, maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe it was the fact that Miguel was a complete stranger who had nothing to gain or lose from Elvis's honesty, but Elvis told him the truth. "I don't know who I am anymore," Elvis said, his voice breaking. Everyone wants Elvis Presley, the performer, the legend, the guy who sings and dances and makes them feel something. But I don't know if that guy even exists, or if he ever existed. I think maybe I made him up, and now I'm trapped playing this character for the rest of my life, and I don't know how to stop." Miguel nodded slowly. "You feel like you playing role, like actor." "Exactly like that. And the worst part is, I've been playing this role for so long that I don't remember what I was like before. Was I ever real, or have I always been performing?" Her life was about to change when the phone rang. But this time, the phone wouldn't ring. Only Miguel's simple question would come.
"Okay, I ask you something," Miguel said. "When you alone, really alone, not with people who work for you or want something from you, what you like to do?" Elvis opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. He genuinely didn't know. When was the last time he'd been alone by choice? When was the last time he'd done something just because he wanted to, not because it was scheduled or expected? I don't know," Elvis admitted. "See, that's problem. You no have self outside of being Elvis. So first thing you do, you find something that just for you. No cameras, no audience, no performance. Just you doing thing because you want to." "Like what?" "I don't know. What you like when you kid, before all this." Miguel gestured vaguely at the world beyond the stairwell. Elvis thought back. I liked reading comic books. Superman, mostly. I liked the idea of someone who could fly away from their problems. So read comic books again." "I'm 40 years old. That's ridiculous." "Why? Who say 40-year-old man no can read comic books? You worried what people think?" "Elvis, you already worry too much what people think. That why you in Stairwell crying. You spend whole life trying to be what everyone else want. Maybe time to be what you want." As the security guards approached, but Miguel's next words would completely change Elvis. "You know what I think?" Miguel continued. "I think you scared. Scared that if you stop being Elvis Presley, the famous guy, nobody will love you. So you keep performing even when it killing you. But I tell you secret, people who only love you because you famous, they no really love you. They love what you do for them. Real love is when someone love you for who you are, not what you can do." Elvis felt tears starting again. "I don't even know who I am." "Then you find out. But you no can find out while you performing every second. You need time to be nobody, to just exist, to remember what it feel like to be human instead of legend." "I don't know if I can," Elvis whispered. "I've been Elvis Presley for so long. I don't know how to be anything else." "Then you learn. Like everything else, you learn. Start small. Start with one thing you do just for you. Read the comic books. Take walk alone. Sit in stairwell." Miguel smiled. "Maybe talk to Janitor at 3 in morning. These small things, they remind you that you still human, still real, still here."
When the door opened, what they saw. Elvis's security team had finally found her. The stairwell door burst open, and Red West, one of Elvis's bodyguards, appeared looking frantic. "Elvis, Jesus Christ, we've been looking everywhere for you. You can't just disappear like that." Elvis stood up quickly, and immediately the mask began to slide back into place. The vulnerability closed off. The performer prepared to take the stage again. But then he looked at Miguel, still sitting calmly on the stairs, and something in Elvis resisted the old pattern. "I needed some air," Elvis said to Red, his voice firmer than expected. "And I needed to be alone, really alone. Do you understand?" Red looked between Elvis and Miguel, clearly suspicious of the janitor. "Who's this?" "This is my friend Miguel," Elvis said, and the word friend seemed to surprise both of them. "We were having a conversation. What you see now is nothing." Miguel's final piece of advice could have changed Elvis's life. Before Red could hustle him away, Elvis turned to Miguel. "Thank you for everything you said. I needed to hear it." Miguel stood up, picked up his mop.
You know what you need most, Mr. Elvis. You need find one person, just one, who no care if you Elvis or not, who just see you as person. That person help you remember who you are. How do I find that person? Maybe you already found him. Maybe he's janitor in Vegas Hotel. Miguel smiled. Or maybe he's someone else. But you know when you find him, because with that person, you no feel like you have to perform. You just can be. Red was getting impatient, reaching for Elvis's arm, but Elvis pulled out his wallet, extracted several $100 bills, and tried to hand them to Miguel. Miguel shook his head firmly. No, I no take your money. What I give you no cost money is free, like air, like truth. You just remember, you human being first, Elvis Presley second. And human being need time to be human. You give yourself that time, okay? Elvis lowered the money, nodded. Okay, I'll try. Good. Now you go back to your fancy room, sleep, rest. Tomorrow you start finding who you are again, one small thing at a time. As Red led Elvis back through the stairwell door toward the elevators, Elvis looked back one more time. Miguel had already returned to mopping the floor, back to his quiet night shift work, as if the last 47 minutes had been completely ordinary. But for Elvis, nothing would ever be quite the same again. Over the next few weeks, Elvis did something unprecedented. He started carving out small pockets of time that were just for him. He'd slip away from his entourage and sit in hotel stairwells, reading comic books he'd had someone buy for him. He'd take walks alone through Graceland's grounds at dawn before anyone else was awake. He started saying no to some appearances, some interviews, some performances, not because he was sick or couldn't do them, but simply because he didn't want to. His management was baffled. The Memphis Mafia was confused, but Elvis was beginning to remember what it felt like to have agency, to make choices based on what he wanted rather than what was expected. He never saw Miguel Rodriguez again. The next time Elvis performed at the Vegas Hilton, he asked to speak with the janitor who worked the stairwells, but was told Miguel had transferred to a different hotel. No forwarding information, no way to contact him. It was as if Miguel had been a ghost, appearing exactly when Elvis needed him and then vanishing. But Elvis never forgot what Miguel had told him. He even started carrying a small notepad where he'd write down things Miguel had said, returning to them when he felt himself slipping back into pure performance mode. You human being first, Elvis Presley second. Real love is when someone love you for who you are, not what you can do. You no fix everything, you just fix today. People who only love you because you famous, they no really love you. Everyone had learned the truth, but the real shock, Miguel's true identity would never be revealed. Elvis died 2 years later on August 16, 1977. In his personal effects, investigators found that notepad with Miguel's advice written in Elvis's handwriting. They also found a letter Elvis had apparently been writing but never finished, addressed simply to the janitor who saved my life. The letter read, "Miguel, if that was even your real name, I never got to thank you properly for what you did that night in the stairwell. You didn't treat me like Elvis Presley. You treated me like a human being having a crisis, and you gave me advice that nobody else had ever given me. Permission to be imperfect, to be confused, to not have all the answers."
I've thought about what you said every day since that night, about finding one person who sees me as human, not as Elvis, about doing small things just for myself, about being human first and performer second. I don't know if I've succeeded. The momentum of being Elvis Presley is so strong that it's hard to step off that ride even for a moment. But I've tried. I've carved out little moments of humanity in between all the performance. And in those moments, I remember our conversation. I remember that I'm more than just what I do on stage. You probably don't remember me. You probably talk to crying people in stairwells all the time. But you should know that you saved my life that night. Not in a dramatic way, You didn't stop me from jumping off a building or anything like that. But you saved me from drowning in my own legend. You reminded me that underneath all the fame and expectations, I'm still Elvis Aaron Presley, still a human being who deserves kindness and rest and the chance to just exist. I'd tried to find you to tell you this in person, but you'd moved on. Maybe that's fitting. Maybe you were meant to appear exactly when I needed you and then disappear, like some kind of guardian angel. If you ever read this, if someone ever tracks you down and shows you this letter, I want you to know, thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for treating a king like a human being. With gratitude, Elvis. The letter was never sent because Elvis never found Miguel, and Miguel, wherever he went, never came forward to claim connection to Elvis Presley. If he even knew Elvis had died, he never told anyone about their conversation in the stairwell. Just when they thought it was over, an unexpected discovery in 2018 would change everything. In 2018, a journalist researching Elvis's final years was interviewing former employees of the Las Vegas Hilton. She spoke with dozens of people, dealers, waitresses, security guards, collecting stories about Elvis's Vegas period. One of her interview subjects was Carmen Rodriguez, a woman in her 70s who'd worked in housekeeping at the Hilton in the 1970s. Near the end of the interview, Carmen mentioned almost casually, "You know, my husband Miguel used to work there too, night shift janitor. He had the funniest story about Elvis, but he never wanted to tell it publicly." The journalist's ears perked up. What story? Oh, something about finding Elvis crying in a stairwell one night and having a long conversation with him. Miguel said Elvis seemed very sad, very lost. But Miguel talked to him like a regular person, and Elvis seemed grateful for it. Miguel was very proud that he'd helped someone who was suffering, even if that someone was famous. Is Miguel still alive? Can I talk to him?
Carmen's face fell. No, mijo. Miguel passed away 5 years ago. Heart attack. But he talked about that night sometimes. Said it was the proudest moment of his life. Not because he'd met someone famous, but because he'd helped another human being when they needed it. The journalist asked if Miguel had kept any records of that night, notes, diaries, anything. Carmen said no. Miguel wasn't the type to write things down or seek attention. He'd just done what he thought was right and then moved on with his life. But Carmen did remember one thing Miguel had said about that conversation. He told me, "Elvis asked me if it gets better, the feeling of being lost, and I told him the truth. It only gets better if you remember you're human first, famous second." I don't know if he believed me, but I hope he tried. The voice on the phone sounded familiar, but in 2019, the only evidence Elvis would possess that night would be found. In 2019, when Graceland was digitizing Elvis's personal papers, they found that unfinished letter to Miguel. It was published in a compilation of Elvis's private writings, and it created a small sensation among Elvis fans. Who was this janitor? What exactly had he said to Elvis? Why had this conversation meant so much? But Miguel Rodriguez was dead, and he'd never sought publicity for his role in Elvis's life, so the full conversation remained private, known only to 2 people, one of whom was now gone, and one of whom had taken the secret to his grave. The only thing history can say for certain is this. On July 4th, 1975, Elvis Presley had a breakdown in a Las Vegas hotel stairwell. A janitor named Miguel Rodriguez found him. They talked for 47 minutes, and something in that conversation gave Elvis a different perspective on his life, even if only temporarily. Miguel never asked for anything in return, never sold his story, never sought to profit from his connection to the king of rock and roll. He just did what he thought any decent human being should do. He showed compassion to someone who was suffering. And sometimes that's enough.
a moment of genuine human connection in the midst of isolation, a reminder that underneath all the fame and performance and expectation, we're all just people trying to figure out how to be human. Elvis Presley died at 42, still struggling with many of the issues that had driven him to that stairwell in 1975. The prescription drug abuse continued, the performing continued, the loss of self continued. But according to those who were close to him in his final years, something did change after that night. Elvis started carving out small moments of humanity, started saying no occasionally, started recognizing that he was human first, performer second. It wasn't enough to save him. The forces that killed Elvis were too powerful, too entrenched, too systemic. But for 47 minutes in a concrete stairwell, a minimum-wage janitor gave the king of rock and roll something priceless: permission to be human. And that mattered. It may not have changed everything, but it mattered.